Hello, everyone! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Alex. This is my channel, Frank Fiction, and my lovely guest, Kat from Kat's Novel Adventures. How are you, Kat?
Hello. I'm fine. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing very well. I am super interested in talking about the book that we read for this month's book club pick because this is something that is out of really both of our comfort zones, not something we typically pick up. I think some of our subscribers had previously read this. Some of them did not want to read this, and other people were like, I'm going to just because you guys will. So I'm kind of fascinated to talk about this, but I very quickly am going to just give a brief description of what this book is about for those of you who might not have read it, and I will also put up a banner really quick. So just throw a heart in the chat if you read it. Put a black heart if you didn't read it, and put a skull if you just were like, I hate this. So, and you DNF'd it. So you're welcome to do that. So a little bit of background on this book. This is the story of Keela, who is a young woman who works as a librarian in the city of Elysium. And she has this assistant who is a spider plant named Kaz. And their whole thing is that they work exclusively with spell books, and they're, responsible for the care of these spell books, but they also lead a very isolated life because they don't typically interact with that many people, and they're kind of just in the stacks all day. And everything changes for them when some people who are trying to overthrow the emperor end up ransacking the city. They light the library on fire, and Keela and Kaz have to escape with as many spell books as they possibly can in the night. And they end up sailing off to an island that Keela was actually born on. And that's pretty much the only place that they can find safe harbor on such short notice. So then they have to try to rebuild their lives. So
yes, excellent. Gold star.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to tell you we got some more readers for this because it counted for Old School April as a host book club recommendation.
Woo-hoo!
And this book could earn people anywhere from like 8 to more points depending on who they were, and the prompts, whatever the prompts are. So if someone had never read a cozy fantasy or cottagecore, that would have been a point.
That's
so
cool.
Female author, a point.
I love that.
I do have to make all kinds of different things.
I do have to make a joke about that you said it's a recommendation. We haven't yet decided whether this is a book we would recommend to people. So I'm excited. I'm excited to find that out.
I will say there were some people who read this book because it was my host rec.
Okay. I think I had some people who did as well, and hopefully people who had previously read it who are still going to join in the chat.
I had some
people who were like, I read that like 6 months ago. It's like, great, come to the live show. I'm going to go over and just say hello to everybody that we got in the comments. So Elena, hello, good evening. Patricia, hello. And Heidi, hi. And Stina, hello. And Robert, Kat saying hello to everybody. And Heidi say, any zombie pop up in this cozy romantasy? No, they do not.
No.
Patricia saying zombie oozing, scorching the putrid here. Jamie, hello. I said, Robert, is there one book that I must read? Whatever the genre, what would it be? Except that weird one with the woman trapped in a jail cell or something like that. I don't know what that is, Tina. Greetings. And okay, Jamie did read it. Thank you, Jamie. Heidi did not. Yeah, I know Heidi said this one wasn't for you, but thank you for still joining the live show. Patricia read it. Tina read it. Stormy did not read it. Thank you for coming anyway, Stormy. Robert said Bee Sting. That's one I keep hearing about. Apparently I need to pick that one up too. And Stina says, I was really wary of the romantasy label, but caved because the cover was so gorgeous. Glad I did. Yes. It is a beautiful cover. I won't lie. That's part of the reason I bought it.
Yes, 100% for me. Yeah. But I will say that she may have brought up the point about it being a romantasy label. I think it's mismarketed.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I would not consider this a romantasy in the sense of true romantasy based on that book I read, The Games Gods Play.
Yes, I remember us talking about that on my live show about like what this would be considered. So I guess this is labeled in the marketing as a romantasy. I would agree with you that it is a cozy fantasy with a romance because there's nothing spicy about this book at all. So anybody who didn't read this, if you didn't read it because you were worried about spice, there is none of that. It is a very tame book.
The author herself labels it as cozy fantasy.
Okay, I like that. Well, hello to Christina. Hello to Angela. Robert giving a cookie. I don't know who that's for, Kat. I'll give that one to you. Christina says that was supposed to be a red heart. Oh, okay, cool.
Yes. And Angela read too, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, she did. And Christina said it wasn't toxic enough to be a romantasy.
All right.
Aw. And Christina said, I read it 5 months ago. Well, thank you all so much for joining. It is lovely to see you. And as always, with the way that we do these shows, we have a very brief section that is spoiler free. And it's pretty much just the beginning, right? It's talking about how we rated the book, our initial feelings about it. And then after that, we just kind of start diving into things. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers because you want to read the book, you're welcome to come back to this live show at some other time. We would still be happy to have you in the views later on. So Kat, that means I must ask you the question. I'm going to start with you, ma'am, because I'm very curious. Tell us your rating.
I'm rating it a 4-star.
Okay.
It's a solid 4-star for me.
Okay.
Are you surprised by that?
Not necessarily surprised. I was wondering, is this because it's a 4-star, what was your other 4-star from the previous books we read? Because it's equal with something else, right? But that's one of your lowest.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's also too because it is a genre I don't normally read.
Right.
So it doesn't have the same impact. So even if I gave something else a 4-star, it wouldn't be kind of rated the same depending on genre, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Does that make sense or not?
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I do. So for me, this is officially the lowest rated book of book club that I've had, but it is not horrific. So if anybody was like scared I was going to hate this, I did not. Yeah.
Okay.
I gave it a 3.5. And in my opinion, a 3.5 is still solid. Like it's not a book for my rating scale. It's not a book that I would tell people that they need to read. But if they were looking for something like this, I could be like, I know exactly the book that you're looking for. So
Right.
I felt like that was fair. This being something that is, I don't want to even say it's out of my comfort zone because it's a perfectly easy book to read.
I mean, I guess I was saying it's out of my comfort zone as far as picking this type of book up, I guess. After reading it, it's something that I would gravitate towards, but you have to be cautious.
Yes.
Because you don't know how it's going to be. But the author did say that she deliberately made the choice to have a non-toxic romantic relationship.
Yeah.
On purpose. She made that as a deliberate choice. She loved that it was awkward but healthy.
Yeah, it was awkward.
I think that's a good thing to know now because going into it, I had no idea. I had no idea if there was going to be like some spice in it or what was going to happen. But it is what I consider clean. You can't even say it's open, closed door because there's no door. Like nothing happened.
If you're offended by smooching, don't read this book. That's the worst you're going to get is a smooch.
Some smooching. And it doesn't even happen right away.
No.
It's like a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
Until the end.
I also like that they didn't have some sort of misunderstanding between them. No misunderstandings. So I feel like I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. One of the things I wanted to ask you was this your first experience with the cozy genre, the cozy fantasy genre? How does cozy fantasy compare to regular fantasy for you? And do you like it more or less?
I think this would be my first cozy fantasy. I don't think I've read anything. I mean, I read the fantasy book, all the games that gods play, and that was not cozy.
Right.
That was like people getting killed, and then they had some scenes in there that were spicy. Like I was like, oh, really? my thing. So I don't read a whole lot of fantasy. When I do read fantasy, it's generally children's fantasy. So I've probably read something children's lit wise, middle grade, that I would be considered a cozy fantasy. But this would be, I would say, my first adult one.
Yeah. Okay.
What about you?
That is the same for me because I racked my brain trying to think of like, okay, when I typically read fantasy, I read things that are like satire, like Terry Pratchett, which is not cozy. It's just satire, right? Or I read like magical realism or high fantasy. But I have never read a cozy fantasy. Now I own a copy of Legends and Lattes, but I
I
haven't
would
gotten
like to get that book. I think that would be a fun one to read.
We could do that on like future book club pick because I know it also has a sequel as well. But yeah, so for not knowing exactly what to expect, not knowing how substantive, that's the word I'm going to use, this story was really going to be, I would say that it did pretty well. I'm noticing a lot of people in the comments are giving it like threes, like 3.5. They're saying that they just liked it okay. And I'll be honest, I almost gave this book a 3, like just a flat 3. But I went back and I was comparing it to other things I'd given 3 stars. I'm like, no, it's better than that, but it's definitely not a 4 for me. And so that's why I gave its 3.5 star. I was like, I feel like that's the most like nice middle of the road.
I think so. I think that's a fair rating. I mean, going into it, it was reading like a 3.5, just because of my feelings for Keela in the very beginning. I'm like, if this girl does not get with the program, I'm going to be sad. But luckily for her, she did. And the one thing I love Goodreads, but the one thing I don't like about Goodreads is that they don't have half stars. And so it's like, what will push it over to the 4-star, kind of thing. Absolutely. And I did. I liked how it wrapped up, and I didn't know until today that there's a sequel.
Or I think somebody said it might actually be a prequel. I didn't know because I haven't read it, but they're tied together in some way. Angela said that it reminded her of Legends and Lattes the whole time she was reading it. So I guess they're kind of similar in tone, which makes sense. They said that's great to Rebecca because Rebecca gave it a 5-star and really loved it. 3.5 to 4 by the end, 5 stars for me. Well, that's great. I'm happy for
I love that it's a good range and no one DNF'd it and no one
faded.
Faye did.
Faye did. Faye, you can tell us tonight.
But as far as ratings for people who read it, no one went below a 3.
Yes. So, yeah, from what I can tell. So I think that's pretty good. I'm happy to have been recommended this book by a staff member at PALS, like just as like a random choice. Because I would have totally picked something else otherwise had this not been a staff recommendation. And had they not written on the card that it had anything to do with jam, because that was the other part that got me. They mentioned jam. So I think we might be about to get into spoiler territory just because I'm going to ask a question that has a why behind it. So just again, you can always come back later. Be happy to see you. So next question is going to be, what was your favorite character and why?
Oh, was this one of the ones you sent me?
This was a new one I added, Kat. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought there was one that was about favorites. My favorite character in the book was Kaz. I absolutely adored Kaz. I loved his little comebacks to Keela. I think what also helped me kind of move it over to the 4 rating was learning his backstory and why he was so attached to Keela, and also learning Laren's backstory and why he was drawn to Keela. So it's just, I think Kaz is like my number 1. I really, really did like him. And then I also liked Bryn. She reminded me of one of the ants from Practical Magic.
Okay, that makes sense.
I got Practical Magic vibes from Bryn, just basing it like on the movie, kind of thing. So anyway, those were my 2 favorite. Laren and Keela were fine, but I don't know. Keela annoyed me for a little bit.
She did me too, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, 100%.
I think
I
she
mean,
annoyed quite a few people because I know Patricia and Amy in the Discord had like expressed that.
yes, absolutely. And I love everybody who's like Kaz and Meep. Yeah, I love like that Kaz had the little cactus, little cactus friend and everything. I thought they were really adorable, and that Meep was the only thing that Meep could say that we could understand. I love
Mm-hmm.
that Kaz would translate.
Right.
I thought that was really cute. And I also really love Bryn. And part of the reason for that is I just love I love a good, strong character that's just like, I am who I am. And she knows that she's talkative and she knows that she's kind of bossy, but she's also kind hearted. But I just also love that she's a baker. There's just something about that. Just the fact that that was her profession. It's like, automatically enjoy it. Baking just has such a cozy vibe about it anyway.
Yeah, and I loved how she was like very motherly, but also she could just be your friend, but
Mm-hmm.
like in a mothering way,
Mm-hmm.
like wanting to take care of people. I think that also rubbed off on Keela as well. I think the one thing about Keela, and I could be getting ahead of myself, is it was a wonderful thing for her to end up on that island
Yeah.
because the personality traits or her character traits, she really did have a good, character arc as far as how far she comes in the novel. But I think it's because she landed on that island and the people she interacted with brought out better things about her.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I have a question later that asks about that. So I'm glad you brought that up because we will get there. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kat. I really did just like add a couple random things, but I promise they're not horrible.
Well, I know they're not horrible, but I was telling Alex I have all my notes written out so I can refer to them because I'll forget. I'll get on a tangent and forget what I want to say.
Normally I do that, but I picked chaos today. I went, nope, I'm just gonna answer off the cuff. I'm gonna do it. So yeah, you're gonna be just fine, Kat. Stina says Kaz is a close second. That's fair. Yeah, I also agree with Patricia saying I want one of Bryn's cinnamon rolls. I
Yes.
agree. You had me at cinnamon roll. Now you did mention earlier, I just want to throw this out really quick with Laren. I do like his backstory as to why he became a good person. I think they shorted him on giving like more details about his life
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like it was just like, yep, this is what happened, and that was it. And I think the author kind of did that multiple times throughout the book with different people. Like we would be introduced to a character, we don't know really anything about them, we just know that they're now friendly, right? Like they're friends of ours, but their backstory could be summed up in a paragraph. And I think that that's probably again part of the reason why I gave it a little bit of a lower rating.
And I'm wondering almost too if she knew ahead of time that she was going to write a sequel or a prequel or whatever she was going to write, so that she set it up to where a lot of that may come out. Like if it is a sequel and Laren and Keela are together, clearly at the end,
Mm-hmm.
we think they're going to, be together. I wonder if that's where it's going to unfold because Laren did not feel comfortable. Like he totally ignored Keela when she was asking questions about the parents and, all that information she had to find out from someone else because she's clueless that this guy cares for her.
Right.
But the one thing that I found, and this is why it went into like the 4 territory, for character descriptions, some of them were unclear to me. And like you said, kind of lacked depth. But like, I was just curious about the history of Caldray because Keela is blue.
Yep. It's just a
Ivor
one lane throw away.
is a flying deer guy with a lot of antlers. Bryn looks special. You got the harp lady that has 4 arms. You've got is it Edna, the one that has the hook is the centaur.
Yes,
The whole thing was Laren blue?
No.
Was he really like just a normal man?
Yeah.
I mean, his physicality was every time he took off his shirt. So it's sort of like in my mind when a guy takes his shirt off, like in a movie, and it's like, whoa, kind of thing. But I'm like, she really didn't go into details much more. So I'm like, what is the history of Caltray? Like, why do we have different people, different families? What is that all about?
Well, I'm so glad that you said that because that leads perfectly into another question, which is what fantastical being interested you the most? Of all the ones that you saw, what did you really like?
Okay, 2. I loved the cloud bears.
Yes.
Now, I do know the cloud bears are described as grizzly, and I think I marked that down. But in my mind, before they told us exactly what they look like, could they trust a wild grizzly bear made of clouds? And that was on page 321. I envisioned Care Bears. That is what my cloud bears were little cute Care Bears. And that's what I stuck with. So when they said grizzly bear, I'm like, nope, they're going to still be Care Bears to me. And then I absolutely adored the idea of winged cats.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
I wanted more winged cats. It's sort of like when we wanted more of Marcel.
Oh, yes. All the Marcel. Hello. Oh, sorry. That's a reference to a completely different book for everybody else who doesn't. That book discussion that Kat just referenced is what started this whole book club.
I kind of wish we would have had that recorded.
I kind of do too, honestly. I know. Oh, well, awesome. My favorite was also the cloud bears, although I was a fan of the mer horses. I did think that they were really cool. I liked the mermaid who was really vicious. It was like, oh, my baby right now. I thought that something about that of her having.
Well, I'm not surprised about that because mermaids are supposed to be very dangerous. Very dangerous. And if you've ever read the one that Cassandra Caw did, help me remember that, y'all. Some of y'all have read it. The Salt Grows Heavy. That's what it is. If you've ever read that novella, the mermaid in there is not nice. Her babies are not nice. So I am not shocked by this mermaid being in like Mama Bear mode.
Mama Mermaid.
Yeah, Mama Mermaid.
I really enjoyed like that little tangent in the book. I actually thought that was pretty cool. In Bear Country, I picked for grizzlies. That's fair. You're up on like a mountain, Zach. So just when the mer horses help them to the cave.
Yes, I love that part. I really did. How they were all like blocking, Yeah, so I really loved the whole thing of the fantastical creatures. I love the world, the atmosphere so much. I would like to live there briefly. It doesn't have to be forever, but just briefly.
Well, I'll ask you a question I actually asked you in my email, which is what did you like most about the story and what did you least enjoy?
Okay. So I mostly enjoyed the atmosphere. I loved the cottage core. I love the fantastical creatures. I love the whole making your own jam because in my mind, I would love to do that. In reality, I would never do that. The bakery part was fantastic. I just loved all like the references to the food, like Laren would make it. It just was very cozy. All of that was very cozy. And I love the characters, especially the fantastical ones, mainly like Kaz. But that's what all the stuff I love the most. What I love the least, I don't know, is there such thing as loving least?
You least enjoy.
Least enjoyed. The political element.
Okay.
But I had to think about it because, of course, without the political element, we wouldn't have had the story. And I think, and stop me if I'm getting too ahead of myself, the more I thought about it, I then started thinking about, and this is another question you have, so maybe I should wait.
That's okay. Go for it. Yeah.
What it was, I was thinking about it. I didn't really like that political element of it, but it worked as the catalyst. And then the more I thought about it, it made me think of book banning and book burning.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
Yeah,
going
that's
down the
my
rabbit
issue with that.
hole of books and knowledge and keeping
Yep.
the books out of the hands of us common folk,
Mm-hmm.
that only the elite can have it, even though at one time everybody had access to it. And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got these elite or these people that decide that they can make rules because they have some kind of authority over you. And
Mm-hmm.
then it causes the revolution. Because honestly, if like, I don't want anyone telling me what I can and cannot read. I
Mm-hmm.
don't agree with book banning in the libraries or in schools or anything like that. I don't agree with that. I don't, because it's censorship. You're saying that I can't read what I want to read. And then how horrible that you even go a step further and you burn a book. Ugh. If I saw someone burning books, like in the thing, that would probably set me over the edge.
Yeah, the entire beginning of the story starts off with them burning all the knowledge that they have. It's like the Library of Alexandria. I almost wonder whether the author kind of like got that like
Yes.
inspiration, because that was how the Library of Alexandria burned the first time, was actually on accident. And it was one like warehouse of the library, and it was because they set all of the ships in the dock on fire, and the library was on the water, and the fire went from the ships to the library and
Oh
one of the
gosh.
warehouses. And it's like, yeah, you guys, you can just destroy everything that you know. um so I understand what you mean. What's funny, Kat, is I'm the opposite of you, because I
Oh,
love politics and books so much. It's weird because I don't like politics in real life all that much, but I love
right.
politics and books. I like fantasy politics because it doesn't affect me. I get to like
Oh, well,
write
that's
about it.
true. That
Um,
is a good point.
and I like that there's at least, okay. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself here. So I like the politics. I like that it was a gentle read.
Mhm.
It's a book that, it's a sweet story. It doesn't really have a lot of stakes. So if you're somebody that you just got out of reading something really heavy, like deeply emotional,
Mhm.
you're exhausted, you're tired, maybe you're out of a reading slump, and you're like, I just need to pick up something that isn't going to be overly emotional and it'll make me feel good. Like the Spell Shop would be, I think, a good go-to, right?
Oh, yeah,
So
good palate cleanser
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And so in terms of like things I liked about it, I did enjoy that. I like the feeling that different characters gave me. So I liked it when
Mhm.
Bryn was on the page. I liked it when Kaz and Meep were on the page. Like each character still made me feel a different emotion when they were introduced, which means that they at least felt like somewhat real. So even though maybe I don't have like all the background that I want about each of them, or I don't know as much about them as I would like, they still felt like real characters.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I like that. So I mean, she gets credit for that. The things that I don't like so much is a double-edged sword. So for me, I love books that have stakes. I love books that something it happens and you're sitting there on the edge of your seat wondering like how this is going to be resolved. Now the nature of this book is one where it's a cozy, so you kind of assume everything's going to work out for the best, but
Right.
it's almost a little over the top how many issues she comes into contact with that are solved the same chapter. And I was like, can we have just like, I want like one real problem that doesn't just get swept under the rug. Because this story, this was another thing. I thought that this book was going to be her on the island for like months at a time, so we're going to really
Mhm.
like get to know the different characters. She's going to have time for her growth and her like change. And it's like a week. This book happens in the span of like a week. And I was like, okay, that's not, that to me wasn't as impactful. And I think that that might be part of the reason why some of the aspects of it felt rushed, why the author kind of like wrote herself into this situation where it's like, oh, now I got to get her out of it and we got to move on to the next issue that she's going to have. And I'm just not a big fan of that. That's why this isn't one of my books I would say is like my top of all time. That doesn't mean I didn't like it.
Right. Yeah,
It's
I get
not,
that. I
yeah,
get that.
it's just not substantive is the best way I could say it. I think some of the relations and the connections between the characters would have been more meaningful with the passage of time as well.
I do
Um,
too.
yeah, because like somebody being hyper protective of you after knowing you for a day is a little interesting. And we'll get to that because actually maybe I'll make that the next question for you, Kat, which is I can do this correctly. What did you think about the development of the romantic relationships and the friendships in this book?
Okay, so as far as the romantic relationships, I mean, I guess there kind of is like two that we know about. I mean, maybe three if you count the plants. I don't know if that would be
I will
romantic or
count the
more like
plants. Yeah,
friendship,
you can.
but they seem
Yeah.
like they were forming more than just being friends.
Kaz shared his soil from his root ball. You
Right.
know that's important.
And as far as Keela and Laren, I thought their relationship, their romantic relationship was sweet. Both of them were awkward. I love the part when Kaz is like, "Let me teach you basically how to talk to one another,"
Hmm.
because you're supposed to be one person speaks, then the next person speaks, not that awkward. But I like the awkwardness of that, and I like the fact that they were just sweet together. Now, at first, Keela did aggravate me because it's like this guy is just being nice. And then you also find out that y'all knew each other, even though you can't remember. Y'all knew each other as kids. So that should give him some cred, you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of thing. But I don't know. I just thought their romance was sweet. And then, of course, learning about the romance between the captain of the ship that comes to look for Raiden.
Hmm.
I think that's how you pronounce her name.
I didn't know. I kept pronouncing it Redane, but I'm sure I'm wrong. So
I don't know. But anyway, I like that the fact that they cared for one another. They had, like, we're supposed to have a romantic relationship. And
mhm,
I think it was more one sided because he felt, I think, more for her.
mhm.
I think she looked at him more like a friend. But anyway, and then of course she had Bryn's relationship that we found out about, but that wasn't really.
Yeah,
It was sad,
yeah,
terrible to me.
yeah.
But we know that it seems like, is going to end up with a romantic relationship also.
With Redane, there we go.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So okay, that was one of the things I was alluding to for my least favorites is like how there's no time for relationships to develop.
Right.
You go from Bryn being very skeptical of Redane until Keela's like, nah, she's okay. Like she's turning in her badge as an imperial investigator. You should totally have her work in your bakery. And then they show up a couple days later, and Bryn and Redane kiss, and it's like, I don't want you to leave before we know what we have. And I'm like, excuse me, what happened?
I know,
I
it's like,
mean,
what's been going on in the flower?
yeah,
What they've been doing? They've been doing more than bacon, huh?
I was like, we could have like at least gotten a little bit of that because I feel like that was kind of dumped in our lap as like a way for people to have happy endings, and I think that that's really ultimately what the author wanted is she wanted everybody to like have their own happy ending, like how Fennerer, the asshole, ends up getting on the ship and he just pisses right off onto like out of the island so they never have to deal with him again. It's like, okay, you know what, I don't.
Honestly, I was hoping the boat was gonna sink, so he would be like, gone pecan. But of course, I wouldn't have wanted the other people to die. Maybe they
Right.
would have made him walk the plank. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with what you've said, and in terms of Laren, I think it kind of goes back to how he felt about Keela. Our childhood memories of people are very very strong. Like we had the image we get of somebody in our mind when we're a kid, or like we knew them years ago. Like we kind of build up this image, and Keela was not an from the reader's perspective, everything that Laren remembered. Because, you know,
Right.
in Laren's mind, it's like she's this generous, like warm, loving person that's going to like take care of a sick merhorse baby, you know, on his behalf. While as what we're seeing is somebody who's isolated, cranky, kind of rude, and it hasn't really shown any level of empathy up until that point. She's shown
Exactly.
of her books and she has her friend Kaz, but like, where's the empathy for other people? Right. And we have to kind of like work up into that until she matches the image of what Laren had in his head. And I almost wonder if that's kind of like the framework that the author was working off of, is like, if Keela can get to the point where she's as Laren remembered, it would make sense for them to be together. Versus like when they started out just kind of being a little bit awkward. And that will,
Yes.
oh yeah.
I think Jamie, what Jamie's saying is true.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that. And that actually leads into another question.
Oh, the friendships. We didn't talk about the friendships.
Oh, we didn't. No, I'm sorry. I feel okay. So I feel similar about those, kind of like my comment earlier, where it's like, okay, you've known somebody for all of like 1, 2, 3 days, and you're like ready to do anything to protect them and be like, well, it's because you're one of us. It's like, I appreciate that in an idealistic world, you can see the good in somebody and you can automatically be like, I'm going to fight every way I can for this person. But in real life, when we're not in a book and we don't know somebody's full intentions, it's like with Redain when she came and she's like acting like a villain, right? She clearly wasn't a bad person, but for that portion of the book, it's like, man, I hate this person. Like I
know. And especially when she took the cookbook, I'm like, oh, you are so mean. That is awful.
I despised her up until like, you know, again, a chapter later where it's like, oh, just kidding. Like she's not actually evil. Right. But that's what I'm saying is you have these characters that they don't really know each other. They don't really know anybody else's intentions. They're just like looking at Keela, for example, and she's lying to everybody's face. You can't forget that.
Right,
she's lying.
Well, it's true. And I mean, some people did recognize her because they knew the parent. So I think they felt like that like connection to her. Kind of. The one thing I did like about the friendships, I do like that the women formed the Pinecone Coven. I just love that little aspect of it. I'm like, I want to be in a coven with these cool women because it's nice to see women supporting women instead of women stabbing women in the back. Because it is hard, I think, even as an adult, like sometimes to make women friends. Don't you think? When it's like everybody's like so worried, like we should be lifting each other up kind of thing. So I did love that. And I think the Pinecone Coven just kind of gave me those vibes, those practical magic vibes or whatever.
Yeah.
And also too, I think this is a perfect example of like a found family type of story. You know, everyone's finding their family and their place, and you learn that, you know, because of Bryn's situation, I think that's what we're supposed to believe because of her situation and how she ended up on Caltray, that's why she's so open to bringing Keela in. So clearly Keela does not look on the outside or appear on the outside like she does with her inner thoughts, because she's very self-absorbed and she is, you know, she's socially awkward. And I guess that's from her being, you know, stuck in the stacks of the library. I think she's selfish, but a lot of the things that she's in the beginning, like closed off and guarded, being alone, or all of that kind of shifts. And it's because of each of the characters that she interacts with.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you teed me up so good right there, Kat. Nice. All right, my next question is, did you find Keela's character development surprising given the pace of the novel, or was it realistic? Given you got a week, right? So is this realistic?
I don't know if it's necessarily realistic. I mean, I liked it because I don't think it would have been hard to read the book if she stayed in her personality that she is when she first arrives there.
Right.
And I know that it was a week, but it almost felt like it was longer than a week, I guess, because so much activity happened in that week that, and they had a lot of interactions where they were kind of like in your face kind of thing. Like we have to kind of rely on each other. But Yeah, I don't know if it was realistic, but I enjoyed it, if that makes any sense. It did happen, it seemed like it took longer than a week, but I did like how she, instead of being selfish, she was more selfless. Instead of being self-absorbed, she was more self-aware. I liked how everything complemented each other. She became the opposite of that. She was still socially awkward, but she was less socially awkward. Like by the time she had to deal with the captain on the ship, it's like she was starting to recognize the social cues enough that she could get herself out of the situation and they could end up being on the same team, basically, kind of thing. But I also do like the fact that she ended up finding a family, and I don't think she realized how much she craved that. Even though she liked being alone, I think there was a part that she was missing.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. And so the way that I viewed her transition over the course of the book is not necessarily that she really changed as a person. It's she became the person that she used to be before she was isolated. So kind of like when she was a kid, like maybe she was more open. I mean, she clearly had her parents, right? But she was still very bookish. She always had her nose in a book. We don't really know how she was truly as a child, but it seemed like there was goodness in her. And then when she went to go to live in Elysium, all of a sudden now it's like, okay, well, I have this one dream, this one goal. I'm going to be a librarian. I'm going to do everything I can to be that. And she had no friends up until Kaz, right? Like her parents were so concerned that she was going to be isolated and alone. So it's not that I don't think she was trying maybe necessarily to be selfish because she wanted to be like self-obsessed. I think it was because she was very single-minded in what she wanted in her life, and she couldn't have that anymore. Her dream was stripped of her because, yeah, what you said earlier, had she never gotten to the island, she'd be the same freaking person. She would be the exact same. She would probably die in that library.
Right. But I will say you brought up a very good point, is that she has found herself again, or like how she was prior, because she was very sweet to Laren's little merhorse in the cove when he couldn't get there or whatever. I forgot about that. So yeah, I think also too, it's almost like her dream, her dream, or what she became, was more of like her mom's dream or her parents' dream, more so than what she would have if she wouldn't have left the island, perhaps.
I mean, I guess the one thing I do enjoy is she didn't become like an entire island icon. Like I think that would have been really weird if everybody on the island knew who she was and loved her in the span of a week. Really, it was like a very small group of people. There were like 5 people who she became friends with very rapidly. And it's like I can believe that more than a whole island, because if it was the whole island, she'd just be a Mary Sue. It would be that everything works out for her perfectly, everybody loves her, and we can't have that. So at least there was some amount of like you're keeping it in a small group. People were talking about the Pinecone Coven, and Estina said Pinecone Coven would be a great band name.
I know.
I think that's really fun. So I think that she overdeveloped in the time frame that the book happened. Yes. But as other people mentioned, it fits the story. And as you said before, you're not going to want to read it if by the end of the book she's still unlikable.
Right.
So I think the only thing, in my opinion, that could have been done differently is again increase the time frame. Because from the second to last chapter, end of the second to last chapter to the very last chapter, there's a 4-month time skip, and I'm like, you're telling me that in no point during the book you could have just like slipped one of those in there, like give it a month, give it 2 months, let her be there a little while before everything catches up to her. Because, and this was another thing that killed me about Kilo's character, she was so insistent in the beginning of the book that they're going to hide, they're going to be quiet, and they're not going to do anything to draw attention to themselves. It's going to be a jam shop first and a spell thing second, and immediately start like getting found out by people that she's casting magic because she's healing the trees. Just right off the bat.
Right, which I did think that was kind of odd. I'm like, no one has seen her.
No.
And I mean, I guess she is new to the island, but I mean, like, you just assuming that this average person that has come on this island that you don't know is fully responsible for all these grand things. And I do have something about that in my notes, about the magic aspect of it. But I liked how Zach said it's a snow globe story, small, contained, pretty, but simplistic, and a limited capacity to be shaken up. It's
So
true. And I think why I think it felt like it was longer than a week is because the book itself was long.
Yeah.
I think that was one of my criticisms is I think it could have been tightened up a little bit more. Like there was a lot of time that could have been just a little bit shorter. I don't think it had to be 374 pages.
You're thinking more of a novella?
Yeah, or if you're going to make it 374 pages, then you have to have some time skips. You have to have some time for people to relish her jam and the word to get out, and for them to become, these partners. I mean, Bryn does bring that kind of stuff up. If you're going to be in a partnership, you don't know me, like we need to like work out the pricing and all that kind of stuff. It's like for someone who was also very sheltered and wanted to be alone, she also trusted these people in the community a lot more. The only person really like she was getting some weird vibe was Laren in the beginning. And I think part of that could have been the romantic tension, the fact that she found him attractive, but she didn't want to be like that because she was trying to hide the books and all that kind of stuff. But then also too, when the Rodin girl came, it's like she was pretty much the only one that she didn't trust right off the bat. But I think it wasn't so much that she didn't trust her. She didn't like the fact that she was at Laren's house.
Yeah.
She acknowledges that, like, why am I feeling jealous, kind of thing. So, but then once she finds out what's really going on with her, it's like they're best pals. So to me, like there had to be some time, either stretch the time out in a way like they did a 4-month jump kind of thing, or just kind of shorten it if you're going to make it a week. I mean, I know that there are books out there that are like a day and they're like 200 pages, but
Yeah. And I like Patricia's comment too of a dual POV alternating between Keela and Kaz would have been fun. And honestly, maybe the book wouldn't have felt so, I don't know, like it just all happened so suddenly if we got somebody other than Keela being like, I got up, I made jam, I made more pine cones, I healed trees, I got in trouble for healing trees. I need to solve this. I need to talk to the spirit bar. I went to sleep. I woke up. I made jam. Like it might have.
That's true. I mean, the point of view, actually, I think it's third person we've got going.
Yes, it is.
So you don't have that same, you like the outsider looking in kind of thing, kind of like a snow globe, which I think that's a good analogy with that. So that I think Patricia makes a very good point with that. If we could have gotten multiple POVs, how amazing would that be? You know what I'm saying? Like you could have gotten Laren's point of view, and we could have learned more about, Keela's background, their childhood. We could have gotten Keela's point of view, Kaz's point of view. Perhaps we could have gotten Bryn's because she seemed the more predominant of the group in the village.
Yes.
Even if we wanted to get the asshat, Finera, and what he's kind of thinking, like, why are you so the way you are?
I only have one stipulation. If we give these characters their different POVs, I want Meep to have one chapter where every line is meep, 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 every word. That would have been actually really cute.
He kind of reminded me of Beaker. Isn't it like Beaker does beep or me, or something like that? That's I was like thinking, I know he was a cactus. That's what I was thinking of.
I am going to make one brief comment about Meep because there was something that frustrated me that the author did. And so bear with me about this. So I have read a lot of books with characters that are non-binary. And I think it's really cool. I think it's awesome to have characters that are non-binary. What I think is very strange is the author both didn't catch it and the editors didn't catch it, that twice in the book, the author misgendered Meep. Both times.
I was confused because when they made the reference that Kaz says, well, Meep would prefer to be they.
Yes.
I was like, okay, well, I thought Meep was not a they. So I must have read it, and that's why it confused me. But then I said, well, maybe I just missed it.
No, I caught it. Like after Kaz is like, Meep prefers they them, there are 2 times later on in the book when the author wrote he, referring to Meep. And I was like, you can't have it both ways. Is this a token non-binary character? Like, you have to like stick with it if you're gonna put that in there. So that's my little gripe. That's my little thing I'm throwing out there because I noticed it and that irritated me.
Well, it did, and also the fact that it had to be the way it had to be said, too. Like, just seemed like, okay, like, let's be. I mean, I guess because Meep didn't talk, maybe Meep had to say. Because then also, too, it had to be brought up that Kaz is a he later on somewhere else, too. I think when she was talking about the captain, to the captain.
That no, I don't know. I only remember them making a point to bring it up the one time, like making, and the rest of the time was kind of just them saying they them about Meep. But and I know that comes across as like somebody's going to be like, oh my gosh, why are you so bothered by that? And it's like, because I don't want token characters. If you want to put in a character where you're making a statement of about being socially conscious, stick with what you're trying to do.
Right.
Because I think that defeats the purpose otherwise. Oh yeah, Zach said, honestly, I didn't notice it took place in a week, and my head was like 8 months at least. I filled in the time for things to grow on my own.
No.
I get that.
I totally understand. I agree with Zach. It just felt like it was longer than a week.
Angela asked, was Keela an only child? What about Laren? They both were. Yes, they both were only children.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Stina says that's the sort of thing I miss when I listen to the audiobook. Yeah, just like those tiny little details. But we were talking earlier about Raiden and about like her role as the antagonist. So I wanted to ask you some more questions about that if you're open to diving into something else, kind of like changing gears here. So although Raiden behaves unethically and takes on an antagonistic role, she is forgiven quite quickly. Mm-hmm. What would you have done in Keela's shoes? And do you think Keela's compassion was authentic?
I could kind of see why Keela was a little more trusting, because Keela was kind of in the same boat, because when she came to the island, she was lying to everybody as well.
Yes.
And she could justify why she did what she did, even though she knew it was illegal, even though she knew in the eyes of the Empire that she was a thief, and, took something out of the library that not everyday people should have had in their hands, for one thing. Mm-hmm. So to me, they were pretty much the same in the sense that they fled their environment for reasons to keep themselves safe, and they had to lie, cheat, and steal, I guess, to get to that point, because she really does the same thing, just a little more dramatically, I think. Yeah, having to be rescued and all that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's believable how much Keela kind of was okay why she flipped. And I guess that's what I'm thinking about that right now. At first I was like, that it does seem so kind of unrealistic that she would have flipped so quick, but maybe she recognized herself in her. Now, other people in the town, she was so threatening to them, and she played her role a little bit too well by, destroying the bakery, taking Keela's, cookbook knowing that it was not spells, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I do think that that happened a little quickly too, for like overall.
Yeah, I think it wasn't just for me that like Keela helped Raiden as soon as she found out who she actually was, because to me that did feel pretty realistic. Like as soon as we found out, it's like, well, I'm trying not to be assassinated and I don't want to rule. I just want to like have a normal life. I'm like, okay, I completely agree with you. You're right. They were very similar. Just one of them was super wealthy and another one was a librarian. The part that got me was when they decided to save the ship captain. And everybody, including Raiden, is like, you do realize they're going to come back. They're going to know that it was magic. And you gave them a reason to leave. And now you're going to save them and that you might be arrested anyway. And I want to say, because I always strive to be somebody who does the right thing. And I want to believe that if I was in that situation, I would have done the exact same regardless, like damn the consequences, right? But I do think that it's very idealistic too. And we have to acknowledge that like everything that happens in this book, because it's meant to be cozy, is idealistic, and it loses stakes because of that. Because if every character that you encounter is actually a good person, the only one who was actually really in their heart an asshole was Fenrir, and he leaves. You know, like he doesn't even end up there at the end. So basically, it's just an island full of perfectly good, morally upright people.
Well, that we know of, because we haven't met everybody, obviously.
Right.
But one thing I will say, they also, I know they bring up the ship, but technically they had to do it to save the village because the water was getting into the bakery. I mean, even the little cat, the little winged cat had to come in.
Yeah.
So they had to stop the storm in order to save their village. I wonder if it would have been more devastating, but it's just the timing of it is, well, you are going to raise eyebrows now because that ship is going to come back. And did it come back? Of course it came back.
Right. Yes. And I do want to clarify something, because Stina said here they were both scared of being executed, them some hella big stakes, and they bonded over that. So I think the way that I'm using the word stakes might be a little bit differently than maybe some other people interpret it. So if you're looking at from the like within the story, they're afraid that they might die or they're going to be taken away. You know, like yes, that would be a stake for them. For me as a reader, a stake is when something happens to a character and there is any other chance than a good outcome. Okay, so like I'm saying that a tangible stake is something where something bad happens and I don't know that the character is going to make it out the other side okay.
Yes.
And in this case, we know that that's not going to happen, because in every instance during this book, when Keela is faced with a problem, it always works out. So that's what I mean when I say
very unlike devolution.
Yeah, like devolution, there's all the stakes. People just die. Like all the people die.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, that's where the cozy comes into the cozy fantasy. So it's like you have to kind of realize that it's going to be kind of like your traditional like little fairy tale kind of where Prince Charming and the princess and all that, and you live happily ever after kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I have to admit that that's me. That's me as somebody who likes a very specific kind of political book, reading something like this, and I know that. And so for people who don't want all of that and you want a story that makes you feel good, that might just be the right amount for you of a stake, and that's great.
Yes,
if it is. I don't have any, I'm not saying anything bad about that. Andrew was asking if anybody else imagined Laren as a Wreck-It Ralph. I was just envisioning him because Keela kept talking about how tall he was. That like she's coming to like chest height on him, and he's like an NBA player. You know, he's like 6.5 feet tall. So
honestly, I was thinking more like Thor. Like just the way, because like he would take off his shirt all the time, you know, and I don't know why I envision him having like this long flowing hair, or like Brad Pitt as Achilles or something. I was just like, it was like in my mind, you know, what he looked like because he was so good looking and handsome. Like I wish I could see like some fan art of him.
Well, I saw exactly one piece of fan art of the two of them, and I didn't like the way it looked, and I was like,
Oh.
So I'm not looking up anything else. So I just have the way I picture them in my head. But like Lyrian is just like this tall, broad, like lumberjack kind of guy. Like that's how I envision him, is just he's got like all the bicep, like looks like a Dorito chip, that's how I'm kind of picturing him. Alicia said we went from Wreck-It Ralph to Thor. Yes, yeah, that's so true.
I think it's the way, because like Thor has the long hair and his build, and same thing with Brad Pitt when he was Achilles. Troy. He was in Troy or whatever, and wasn't quite as buff as Thor, but
I love the conversation of people talking about like Meep, like not learning language by the end, but people were still understanding Meeps, and I like that. And the question of like,
why did you like Groot? Yeah,
yeah, like I am Groot. No, you're absolutely right. As Zach said, the stakes made way more sense than in most cozies. Most cozies are absolutely absurdly bloodless, and the resolutions are even more easy. That honestly is what I was expecting of this book, and the fact that it wasn't that is the reason it got over a 3. So I can appreciate it for the fact that I think the author tried to inject something of like, there's something to worry about, right, into the book.
right.
So that, I mean, I did like that. Larry goes Fabio. Yes. Alicia said I kind of pictured him like Gaston.
Yeah,
But nice and lumberjacky.
yeah. That's another one. That's true. That's
Yeah.
a good image.
Absolutely. So the next question I'm going to ask, this is gonna kind of be, I guess, more of like a personal take from both of us. But do you believe that asking for help is an act of courage, or is that a life skill that Keela had yet to use?
I do think it's actually an act of courage. I think sometimes people, even characters and stories, always view asking somebody for help as like a weakness or a sign that they're not intelligent enough to figure it out on their own, or they're showing like their lack of independence or whatever. But I honestly think it shows courage. I think it's something that definitely Keela had to learn to do. She was so used to being self-sufficient and independent because she only had to care about herself and Kaz.
Yes.
She didn't have to care about anybody else. And so for her to ask for help meant that she had to allow other people into her circle. So for every person you bring into your circle, and then it's just having to prove herself. Like, I mean, if it wasn't really and truly, she needed to have Kaz. I mean, because he helped her.
He was the
So,
negotiator. Like,
yes.
he was clueless in the beginning. Yeah, I completely agree.
And my whole thing is, Laren, first of all, you're acknowledging that he's good looking. He has nice eyes. He's got apparently a nice physique when he takes off that shirt that you keep telling us about.
Yeah.
So if he wants to build you some bookshelves, or he wants to build you anything, if he wants to fix you a meal, let him. Because I mean, that to me was like eye candy. Like, just be looking and relaxing, and I'm liking this food. Thank you. When are you coming back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the reason I like this question so much is because for me personally, it's very difficult because my answer for other people is different than my answer for myself.
Ooh.
Which I guess is kind of hypocritical, right? Because and I can accept that too, because that's something I'm actively working on. So like when I was growing up, especially when I was in college, I had a really difficult time like being a team player, right? And so it's like I'm that fiercely independent person. I want to do everything myself, very much still have those traits. I have a super hard time asking for help until I've reached the point where I'm like, I just can't do it, right? And so in that way, I kind of understand. I mean, I do understand where Keela's coming from. Is she's like, well, we're gonna come up with this plan, and we're gonna figure all this out on our own, and we don't need anybody. But she very quickly realizes that she's completely out of her depth, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
so for her, having never asked for help, having never needed to, because she had Kaz, it did take courage because she was so socially awkward. She was so terrified of like somebody finding out what she had done, of them judging her and thinking her being like this horrible thieving person. It took a lot for her to ask. That being said, I do think that it had you removed her from that particular situation of like her hoarding books and everything, right? I do think that it's a skill to understand when you need help. It's
Yes, I agree. I
yeah,
agree
you
with
have
I
to
do.
yeah, you have to really like you have to assess what you're capable of doing, and you have to know who to ask and when to ask. And it's really hard because I wouldn't say that like I get scared to ask for help. I view it almost as like a personal failing. And so like in that way I'm different than Keela is because she is actually like she has a reason to fear for her life versus me where I'm like I just don't want to admit that I can't do it.
Right,
Um
and I get that. I do get that because I am a problem solver and I like to figure things out, but I do have to admit to myself that my skill set is different in different situations. So when it comes to like technology, for example, I have to admit to myself, you are not technologically savvy and you make yourself crazy
mhm.
instead of just reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, could you please help me with XYZ? So I've gotten better with that because I don't want to look like, silly or foolish or whatever when I'm not doing something correctly. And then
Mhm.
I would rather go ask someone so I can prevent that from happening instead of somebody saying, hey, well, you could have reached out and said, and I would have been happy to tell you how to put yourself on the screen instead of us just having to look at a black box. Oh, so I've gotten better about that, but I do understand it's not so much the personal failure thing all the time as it is I don't like to bother people,
That too.
especially if
Yeah.
people I know have a certain skill set that can help.
Yeah.
I know that they're super busy. And so
Yes.
then I feel kind of like I don't want to add anything to your plate,
Yes.
but I kind of try to feel people out. And I'm like, look, you can tell me no, and I
Mhm.
will go search for someone else if I have to, but even like trying to look something up on YouTube or looking up something, sometimes you can't find the answer. You need a
Yep.
human being.
Mhm. No, it's so true. And yeah, I appreciate you saying that it's true. It's not always just about feeling like, oh crap, I can't do it, and somebody's gonna think I'm dumb because I can't do this. It's also because yeah, you don't want to impose on people.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with that. And Zach said 100% asking for help is a sign of strength. Only the weak and insecure pretend they don't need any help. Allowing for vulnerability is strength. And I 100% agree with that. And I think that finding that balance is difficult. And I like that at the end of this book that Keela recognizes that she has to lean on other people and she's
Yes.
resistant to it in the end. By the end of the book, she is like fully enveloped in the idea of community. It's
Yes.
it's like she really exercised that skill of like, okay, I'm not even ashamed that I need help. I just know that I have these people who would do anything for me.
Well, also too, I think she believed that she knew what people's ability to help her would be. Like I'm a type of person that I am not going to offer my help if I truly know I cannot help you.
Mhm.
Like, or I'm in a situation where I do not have the time to physically help you, kind of thing. I'm not going to put it out there. But with that being said, if I tell you I will help you if you need help,
Mhm.
please reach out,
Mhm.
then that really means I'm going to help you.
Yes.
And if for some reason at the time you finally ask me for help, if I am in like a crisis situation, I would say, I really want to help you. When does this deadline happen for you?
Uh-huh.
Because like I'm in crisis mode, but tomorrow I might be out of it, kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Right.
So I think when your relationships develop with people, when you truly know when a person is telling you something, you have that trust factor. And I think that's what ends up happening, especially with Laren for
Mhm.
Keela, is he really didn't want anything from her. Like he wasn't doing it because he wanted to be paid. He wasn't doing it because he wanted a reward or some acknowledgement. He was doing it because he truly wanted to help her.
Yeah.
And I think once she got that, and she was a little slow because Bryn and the other ladies had to kind of point it out to her. I think once she realized that, and she realized the relationship in her newfound family that she has, then it was easier for her to kind of say, okay, look, I can't do this. So I'm going to start working with people.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And I do like that part of the book. I think that that's awesome. Angela said, I'm fiercely independent. I wouldn't say I need the courage to ask for help. I just really like to solve things on my own. I just don't like bothering anyone. It's like, yeah. And I guess that's kind of what I was getting at, is like, for some people, asking for help, if you haven't ever been in a situation where you've had anybody to lean on, or maybe people haven't been kind to you, Stan was
That's
talking about, like,
true.
Keela didn't have anybody who was like just genuinely kind. Everybody was so, isolated. It could be terrifying to be like, yeah, I need to go ask these people I don't know very well for help, right? Or for
Mhm.
other people, it's just like, oh man, now I know I'm beat. I need to go and ask somebody, right?
Yeah.
And Zach says, with skills, I have a pretty hard line between can and cannot, and subdivided things I can do into tools, toys, and weapons. One thing can be in multiple boxes.
Yeah.
That's fun. The next question, we're down actually to my last two questions that I got for you here. So my next one is going to be, what did you think about, I should fix this, sorry. What did you think about the magic system? Did it make sense? And what did you want to know more about?
Well, for me, I really did like the magic system. I just wish we would have known a little more about it,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense, like, I need like more of like the backstory of it, perhaps. I'd also wanted to know things like, what was the age you had to be to use the magic? Like, could
Oh,
anyone use it? Children and adults. Is it a talent, or is it an innate ability? Is it that some people could do it and some people can't? It seemed like the people were able to do the magic on Caltree years before the elite decided, we're going to take this magic away because we're going to be the all powerful or whatever. But it just seemed like for Keela and Radane, one of them was studying in university to be the wind spell person.
mm-hmm.
And then Keela was just well read and
Right.
interested in it. So
Mm-hmm.
she knew the languages and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wish I knew more about that aspect of it. Like, and like what the levels were in this magical system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is there some kind of a hierarchy? You had sorceress, you had a sorcerer and sorceresses, but were there different levels? I mean, I think they must have been if you had a person that specifically did the wind.
Yeah. So the way that, and you could tell me if you think I'm completely off base, but the way that I viewed the magic system in this book is everything is based off of like academics. So back then, like back in the olden days, it's kind of like somebody like in prior generations knowing a mother tongue from like the land that they're from. And then as the generations continue on, everybody starts forgetting. So there's a language of magic that back in the day everybody used to know, and so people used to be able to do it. But what happened is when sorcerers started becoming popular and they would travel around to the islands, they would do the magic so much better than the layperson that the layperson stopped even knowing how to do it because they relied on the sorcerers, which is why they couldn't do things like fix their streams, fix their fountains and things like that. So it became a matter of the people who went to school, who were taught the language, kind of like people like learning Latin,
Right.
like for medical school and things like that. Like you go, you learn the language, you learn about the spells, you don't have access to the spells. And if you don't know the language, then you can't practice it. And so I don't think that like anybody really has an innate ability. I don't think children can really do it. It's not kind of like in Harry Potter, where Harry can like
Right.
make, like a little pigtail show up or anything like that. I think it's definitely you have to be well versed in magic in order to even be able to like mess with it in the first place, which is
Right, to be that effective. And maybe perhaps that's why the elite took it away from them, or because they had formed a job where a sorcerer would go out and do that. So if you've got somebody doing that, you don't need the lay people messing with it, because they could maybe do more harm than good.
Yes,
Kind of
that's
thing.
exactly the way
And
I understood it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's what broke my heart so much about Kaz's creator, is that she literally made Cass so that she could have a friend because she was lonely. And instead, they made it seem like she had made a mistake, kind of thing. And so they set the example for that. That really did. I mean, I didn't have tears pop in my eyes, but that was a sad story.
It really
The
was.
fact that she was left in there to burn
Mm-hmm.
or to rot, whatever would happen first, just was so like sad to me, because people didn't understand, or they didn't let her at least. But that goes to where once they were in power, they didn't want anybody messing with it. Because could you think about if they were creating all kinds of things?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, they clearly could if they really wanted to. And the fact that he was made on purpose. Now, there was one part, sometimes I think the author just like forgot things that she would mention. I'm like, did you go back and proofread your own book? Because so when Redain first met Kaz, and Redain is like asking, "Oh, is one of your creator one of the villagers? I would really like to meet them." And Kaz goes, "My creator burned in a fire." Okay, like just very clear statement. Not maybe like a few chapters later, Kilo's going, I wonder if Kaz understood what happened to his creator. Like, I've never heard him mention it. Did he think about that? And it's like, yeah, he just said he knew that she burned. Like, you already wrote that in there. And then
Right.
later on, he has the whole explanation of like, yeah, they turned her into wood and she was trapped in there and then she burned alive. And I was like, we know that he knows that. So
Right.
I was like, come on. But I liked it that Kaz talked about his creator and did talk about like the emotional reason of why he was made and why that was meaningful for him, that it's like he had purpose, he had a reason to be alive. Like,
Mhm.
he wasn't just some happy accident. Like, he was wanted. And I think
Right.
that meant something to him. Like, in the same way that it would for kids. I mean, kids want to know that they're wanted, right? And so Kaz needed to find a friend to be with who wanted him around. And for him,
Well, also too, I think that's why he embraces meat.
yeah, gotta love Meep. I just love Meep's name. I like saying that word. It's great. Um, Andrew said, I thought the magic system is about right. The elite always keeping their boots on the working man. I would have liked to know more about the cloud bears, though. Yeah, and I
Mhm.
wanted to know how, like, what Redain saw when she went in the
Me
tree.
too.
She was
Me
like, "That's
too.
weird." It's like, could you explain that?
See, that's where I think that there was a lot of possibilities of things more that we could have delved into it.
Mhm.
It's sort of like, I don't know. I think there's some things that she could have like gone into a little more depth. Like I said, if you're going to do 374 pages, there's a lot you can do with those 374 that it didn't have to be the way it was, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wanted to know more about the cloud bears too, that look like Care Bears.
I just like the way that they look in your mind. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
very happy.
And I have one more question for you. This was something we kind of talked about earlier, but I really want to like dive into this and everybody with their comments too. So, what was Durst trying to say about the nature of knowledge and only certain people being allowed to access information? Are there comparisons you can make in real life? And Kat, I think you mentioned earlier, and what I was also thinking about was book banning and
Hmm.
the fact that Now, people have different reasons for wanting to ban books, right? And different types of books, because it's not like we're living in a world where we're saying that a book is literally dangerous, that you could open it and it could have something in it that is going to kill somebody, right? But historically, you have books like Catcher in the Rye that supposedly incited violence. You have other books that are teaching children about like how to have a more inclusive world, that a lot of people don't enjoy. And I
And
definitely think,
religion is another
yeah,
one. Are you
religion,
there, God? It's me, Margaret, was
yeah,
banned because of the religious aspect in it.
yeah. And so I do think that while heavy-handed, I do want to say I think the author was heavy-handed about it. I think that her overall message about why it's important to share knowledge with people
Mhm.
was positive. And the fact that she's also implying that like people are going to take information and they're going to do with it what they will. There is the potential, and as with anything, that somebody could take like magic and maybe they could use it for ill purpose, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that everybody's going to.
Right.
And in their case, they were just regular people who were trying to save their island. They were trying to help the mer horses. They were trying to help the trees. They were trying to, prevent people from dying. And so if they have that power and they have that ability, they should be allowed to exercise their chance to use it because overall it could help. And
Yes.
I think what they were kind of what the empire is implying, of course, is that like, well, if they can't control who uses it, then like everybody's just going to be out of control. And it's like, but how realistic is that? And did they have any evidence of that? We of course
Exactly.
don't have
Yeah,
that in
like who just
this.
made that decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because when they were talking about like the Caltrans and how, back in the day, my mother's mother used to be able to like make a stream. Keela didn't say that people used to run wild and just like kill each other with magic. It was kind of like this government just came in and was like, you can't do that anymore. It's illegal. And I don't know. I think that
I think it's a power thing. Whoever
yeah,
this person was that was in power just decided it's no different than Hitler in Germany,
yeah.
like to become powerful. Like for me, for this question, I was thinking about knowledge as being theoretical and being practical. And like, you learn the theory of whatever it is, a topic or an application of something, and then you actually have to put that knowledge into practice. So you
Mhm,
have people that are going to read about the magic, they're going to read about what it can do, whatever, and never do anything else with it. Okay,
mhm,
but they just have the knowledge of it. And then you have people that are actually going to say, whoa, this might work out, I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to apply it some way. And I think that Keela was really good, a good character to show this, because she was a librarian first and foremost and had the theoretical knowledge. She had never applied any of it.
mhm.
So for her to actually, I liked her then applying, actually going through the application of it, because she's going to try to use that knowledge. And they showed the experimentation of it,
Yes.
instead of her just all of a sudden saying these words and everything turned out perfect. I did like that aspect of it, because then it really showed you can know something because you read it in a book, but it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily mean you can apply it,
Yeah.
because you don't have the skill to apply it until you have done it. Like to me, that would have been very far fetched. And
Mhm.
that's one thing I was kind of thinking, is it that you have some kind of knowledge or innate ability or talent, or you just understand it better than others? And I think you see that because also Rodane is not confident. She says she's not a good student. She does not know if it's going to work because she's never done this before. And she does not know if the knowledge she has, if she can actually apply it. So I
Mhm.
thought that was good to see the difference, that yes, it's important that you have the knowledge and you know how to apply it. But I don't think that people shouldn't have the ability to at least try or to
Yeah.
learn. And so
Mhm.
with that, oppression of knowledge comes in. And that's what I think she was trying to say. They had the oppression of knowledge, which ends up then having negative consequences. It leads to rebellion. Now you end up with social change after a rebellion, but it depends on what side of the rebellion wins.
Yep.
If you are on the bad side, it's not going to fare well. If you're on the good side, it could mean a lot of wonderful new things for people. And that's what made me think that this was about book banning and book burning, that they both represent censorship. It also questions authority, because knowledge is power, and power can be dangerous depending on who has the power.
Yes.
That's my 2 cents.
No, I love that. That's great. And Stina threw in a real world example. So the early church having services only in Latin, requiring confessions through priests. And the other thing too was, even when they weren't being done in Latin, when people couldn't read, the priest could read anything that they wanted to, right? Like they could say anything was in the Bible, and it's not like anybody could say that they were lying either. So definitely like early church services for sure. Zach saying taking away knowledge reinforces learned helplessness, and uninformed populace is easy to control. That happened historically as well.
Oh, that happened historically in so many cases.
Yes.
Like not wanting women to know how to read, not wanting African Americans to know how to read. Because if you can't read and you don't know what you're signing, or you don't know what it says or what it means, somebody could sit there, show you a piece of paper and says, this is what this is all saying, please sign your name. And you've just signed your life away, or you've just signed yourself into servitude or into debt, or whatever the case may be. I almost even wonder if that's where these stupid terms of agreements come from when you buy something, because
and
there's
a South Park episode about that.
You'd have to take your magnifying glass out, and who's going to really go through every little piece of that? Not many people. I know I don't, but yeah, I think it really is kind of scary when you think about that we're seeing that with book ban. And I mean, book banning's been around longer than I've been alive, but
we're seeing that with the Department of Education too, which Stina has said. And maybe Durst will go more into the history of restricting magic in the Enchanted Greenhouse. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I would like to know. Like to know that.
Jamie says knowledge is power. That's why those obsessed with power fight to keep knowledge from others. Yeah, absolutely. Stina says, I've seen that happen on the res with title loan companies. Yes, those are super predatory to people because they have like outrageous interest rates. They're awful. Like payday loan places. Oh my God, they're awful. And rent to own stores. Yeah, absolutely. Kat, do you have any questions for me, ma'am? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think we pretty much covered everything between the two sets of questions we sent out to everyone. I did like, that she says she wrote the Spellshop to feel like a warm hug and like drinking a cup of hot chocolate. And did she succeed? I like that question. And I think it's because I watched a little promo, because I was trying to see if I could hear the names of the characters.
Oh, yeah.
And she said she wrote it because she had not ever written a cozy fantasy before, and that's what she wanted. And that she wrote it, she wanted the reader to feel safe. And because she just enjoyed creating this world. And I thought it was kind of like that. You just got invested in the world building on this island, and it just seemed like a place that you could go. It would be a nice little vacation spot.
It is. I'll be that person to say that I'm weird because I like my books to punch me in the face. Like, I really do. Like, I love it when a book comes in and is like, do you want to hurt? How bad do you want to hurt? And because it makes me feel like that's my form of catharsis. So it's almost like when everything's going right, I'm like, man, I'm not getting that right now. But Did I think it was sweet? Yes. Do I
Yes,
think that
I
it is
did.
like a warm hug? Yes. Is it like drinking a warm cup of hot chocolate? I think it's more like eating a cinnamon roll. Um,
Yes,
I
yes.
I do think that she succeeded in that. I think she succeeded in pretty much everything that she set out to do, regardless of my taste in books. I give her credit, full credit for that.
Yeah, and I was telling, I think I said this on my sprints this morning. This book right here would work perfectly for my little charming couple. It's a Charming Life, Lindsay and
Oh,
Jonas,
yeah.
because they live in a cozy cottage and they do a lot of do it yourself kind of little projects, and they've got the wildlife. They don't have any magical creatures, but they have their wildlife and their garden. So I am going to make a, just like mention this to them in the Cozy Cottage Book Club, that if anybody's interested in a cozy fantasy,
Mhm.
that they might want to check this out, that it kind of fits their aesthetic of being a Cozy Cottage Book Club, and their whole chapter, It's a Charming Life. So
That's sweet. I think that's awesome. And until Kana said, "Who else ran out and got a spider plant?" I had to look up what a
I
spider
have
plant
one.
was.
I
You
have
have one?
one.
Oh, that's
Yes,
great. Are you gonna name
because
it Kaz?
no, it's just a spider plant. It's not actually even my plant.
Oh,
Andrew's ex-girlfriend, Eileen, gave it to him
okay.
because she had different plants and stuff, and he thought it was cool. You know how he has an affinity for animals and everything. And so he brought it home, and he didn't take it with him when he moved in with Megan. So
You
yeah,
got ice cream bar and a spider plant.
I
I
have ice
love
cream
that.
bar and the spider plant. Yes. And my
That's
husband's been working extremely hard on ice cream bar's new habitat,
oh,
because my dad had a large fish tank. And when his fish died, he was like, I don't know what to do with this, but ice cream bar is growing. He's getting to be a big boy.
oh.
And so it comes with a wooden like stand. So my husband this week has painted it. He created a backboard for it. He's making doors so we can, because it didn't have like any doors. It had like a bottom that was open. So he wants doors. We can put all this kind of stuff in there. And then we're going to have to clean out this tank and make a really nice top for it. So yeah, my husband's been working hard for ice cream bar.
That's so sweet. I love it. Ice cream bar's gonna have whole new
He's
digs.
gonna have he's gonna have a crib.
Then a crib. He's gonna have a pimped out crib. I love
Yes, he
that.
is.
And
Oh,
I know Tina had asked if anybody had read the description of enchanted greenhouse. I didn't even know that was gonna be
I
coming.
did not know that until
So
today.
yeah,
Until today on my
today you're
morning
saying
sprints. Yes,
yes.
Alicia brought it up, and I'm like, maybe that's the way why it ended the way it did. Maybe she felt like she didn't flesh out enough,
Yeah.
and that we're going to find out more. I
Mhm.
would be open to reading the next book. I mean, it's coming out June or July. Would I pick it up like maybe right away? Maybe not, but
Mhm.
I would want, I think I would continue. I'm curious.
I mean, it's nice to know that it's not just a one-off since people have so many questions. So
Mhm.
I think that's great. And Jamie said another good choice. Thank you. I never would have read this without this book club, but I'm glad I did. It was fluffy and kind of fun. I'm just glad it didn't turn into the biggest flop because Kat and I are pretty confident about the rest of the books. This one was the one we were like, I don't
It
know.
is, because it is not normally something that we gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Not that we don't enjoy sweet or whatever, but it's actually nice that we scheduled it for when we scheduled it, because it was nice to come out of winter. And, y'all had tough winters where y'all were at. So, yeah.
Mhm. Zach was giving me a recommendation about the Mercies. He came up
Oh,
with the phrase "got punched in the face by my own heart."
I will tell you, I have not read that, but that was recommended to me by Jack from the FOMO Book Club, because we read The Dance Tree by
Mhm,
Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Talk
mhm.
about two books, I would tell you, that will stomp your heart and like in your face kind of thing, is Beloved by Toni Morrison
Oh,
and and The Dance Tree by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. I read those back to back, and I'm telling you, I had to read a romance because I'm like, I can't. That was like 2 books. I was like, I can't. I recommend both of those books. They were both 5 stars for me.
Oh, awesome.
Very, very like where I cried in scenes because it's just so like devastating because it's both of them are considered historical fiction. Yeah. So, when you think about what has happened and it's women and it's like time period and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. It just did that for me.
That's why you got to read Pachinko. As Angela's saying, same Alex, I'm reading Pachinko. Ask me how badly I want to hurt. Let me tell you, that was my best book of 2024. If you want a good historical fiction that's going to make you feel, read Pachinko.
Yeah, I have to be in the right mindset for books like that because if I'm not, I'm like, oh man.
See, I'm not the only weird one. Jamie also wants a book that's going to punch her in the face. That's how I describe things. So it is nice to know other people like that too.
Well, I do think our next book is going to punch us in our face.
Yes. Good. I want to come on here and cry, damn it. Not really, but I want to like tell you how like torn up I was at some point. Mom always had several. I can't keep plants alive except for one succulent that is barely hanging on. I'm doing okay right now with my 2 plants, but I'm not going to jinx it because I don't know how long that'll last. I do plan on getting a Kaz plant. We don't say the S word here. Oh, spider.
Oh.
Spider, but get a Kaz plant. That's great. Well, Kat, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everybody. Like this is so fun. Like the Spellshop overall was a nice step away from normal read. Conversation gave me a clearer lens to look through when reading cozy fantasy. Thank you all, and thank you. Replaced one of my husband's plants after I killed them all. Not allowed to touch it. Oh no. What is ice cream bar? Ice cream bar is a snake.
Ice cream bar is a speckled king snake. He's beautiful. Just beautiful. And he's black and white, so he looks hence like a ice cream bar. I did not name him.
I like him. He's adorable. I have seen the Can't Spell Treason Without Tea series because that one is one that's got multiple books as well, and that's cozy. And it's a sapphic romance as well.
Yeah, and what did Jasmine say?
The sequel might be a cozy read for the fall with the second book.
Yeah, maybe so. Do we want to tell them what our next book is?
Yeah, you want to grab it? Yeah, it's right here. Chain Gang All-Stars. That's what we're going to be reading next, and very, very, very excited for this.
Yes, this one I think is going to be intense.
Yes,
and
intense. I did my best.
Strong female characters.
Yes, and I think it's also sapphic, isn't it? Are they in love? Yeah, they're teammates and lovers. So there's that element in it too. So if you're interested in something like that.
And this is going to have some heavy themes in it, I think.
Yes.
A lot of social commentary, even though it's not taking place in present day. No. I tried my best. Our author's name is very difficult to say. When I did my announcement video, I had to listen to him pronounce his name like over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. It's Nanakwame Adjei-Brenyah.
Yes.
Yes. Did I do it well?
Yes, you did. Nanakwame Adjei-Brenyah. That's his name.
So yeah, I love the cover.
It's beautiful, isn't it? It's like the perfect shade of yellow as well. Just everything about it, even the binding is lovely. So,
and you know what I'm wondering? I read Ring Shout, which I
need to read that.
Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed it. The main characters in that story are strong female characters, and they're up against, a lot. But even like learning what ring shout means to me, discovering that when you're reading the story was also just like eye opening, and just the Gullah people, and like the hate and all that kind of stuff. I just was like, oh, there's so much in this tiny little book.
I'm sure I'd love it. And as Zach said, from cozy to war games or wargasms. Yeah. Yeah. Cause this is about people who are in the prison system who are trying to compete for their freedom. So they're like working through this organization where they have to go into gladiatorial combat. And so we have characters that are really close to being released, but then like something happens where they're kind of, it sounds almost like they're starting like a movement or a revolution in some sort of way to like bring awareness to people about why these games are heinous. It very much gave like adult Hunger Games. You know what I mean? That I think that's how I described it when I did my my video talking about our book choices. I was like, it really feels like a more adult Hunger Games.
And this one is $3.59, so it is actually shorter. Now yours, I don't know. You have the paperback version, so it's about comparable to the Spellshop. How many pages is yours?
408.
Oh, okay.
But that's still not bad. Like that's, I mean, reasonable compared to some other books I read, you know, earlier in the year. This I think will go by pretty quick. Oh, Zach said, wow, I hated Ring Shout. I'm sorry to hear that.
I liked it. I didn't know if I would, just because I had heard that like it's almost like there's no middle ground with it. You either like it or you don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I did.
We got the question when we'll be doing like our next book club meeting. So that should be June 20th.
That is going to be, let me get my calendar out. It's generally always the last Thursday of our second month.
Yes.
So this book is actually going to be our May-June, and it's going to be on June the 26th.
Yep.
Same time, except instead of it being on Alex's channel, it will be on my channel for June.
Yes.
We flip-flop.
Yes. Yeah. And it works out well for us. I like doing it this way.
I do too.
Thank you all again so much. This was a wonderful discussion. And Kat and I have like the perfect tendency to go around like 2 hours for these. So get ready, because this is going to be another 2-hour discussion. I know that it will be. But Kat, thank you for being such a lovely co-host. You're a joy.
Thank you. I love our book club, Alex.
I do too. It's one of the things that brings me so much joy on BookTube, and I hope it does for you all as well, and that you'll consider joining us for the next book. Even if it's something you don't typically read, you might be surprised. Sometimes we're surprised too. But with that, I'm going to wish you all a good night. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.